Hi.
Yes. Yes, hello.
For those who aren't in the know, there was a Pokemon Presents yesterday.
Happy day after Pokemon Day, everyone.
Yeah. And surprisingly, Game Freak / the Pokemon Company did something, let's call it unexpected?
I would say that, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Basically, they decided to release Pokemon Z a good decade later.
Yeah, that is like the most... Okay, first off, the fact that there's a new Pokemon Legends game, you could have...
Yeah, I did say that in the introduction to my reaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I would have wanted for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, before going into Direct, there was only one thing on people's mind, and that's Gen 5. That or... like, let's go Johto or something. But basically, something Johto or something like Gen 5. It was going to be like Gen 5 remakes, whatever. So the fact that they're going to say, no, we know that Gen 5 is perfect, so we're not going to touch it. Instead, we're going to go to Gen 6, and we're going to make Pokemon Z, basically. That is, or at least, go back to that concept. That is wild, and that is exciting. Just the fact that
because
it's a wild thing to do.
Especially because Gen 6 kind of got fucked over by the Pokemon Company, and they just did X and Y and then left Zygarde in his little cave. Moved his side quest from Z to Sun and Moon.
Which was the most random thing. I remember when they announced it, I was like, what the fuck is that doing here?
Keep it as a complete afterthought.
Yeah, and it's because the data miners looking into the games, they saw that there was 100% supposed to be a Pokemon Z, but for some reason they were just like, nah, fuck it.
Y2, because I think there's 2 Kalos.
Yeah, it might have been that
in the data.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter. Basically, there was supposed to be a Z or a third version, but there wasn't, and they skipped to Sun and Moon.
Yeah, so it is very cool that they're going back to that, and maybe I'll actually have opinions on Zygarde now after playing this game.
Yeah, Zygarde is forgettable purely because he didn't get his own thing. Sure. And we don't really know what his deal is.
Despite the fact that he's the Pokemon with the most signature moves.
Yeah, and special forms and all that. So.
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo form.
But yeah, the one thing you already mentioned is that they decided to skip over Gen 5 for now. Yeah, I don't think this means they're just not doing anything with Gen 5, period. I also don't think this is the end of remakes.
Oh, no, I think they're gonna do more remakes at some point. Like at this point, a Gen 5 remake is inevitable, but maybe they're just waiting until, I don't know,
it is just interesting that instead of doing the expected thing and following their schedules, oh, look, it's about remake o'clock this year, so let's do the remake. They're finally deciding to oh, you know what, let's not. Which leads into my next discussion point, is Pokemon finally slowing down a little.
It is weird to think about the fact that this year, there is no Pokemon release this year.
They're skipping November, or they haven't announced it at least.
If there was going to be released this year, they would have announced it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really strange for the Pokemon Company to skip a November.
Yeah, I mean especially technically this year we're getting trading card game Pockets. That's a release this year, but yeah, nothing mainline, which is it's wild. But it's funny that this is the first time where I saw, people saw the 2025 release date, and everyone was like, "Yes, thank you."
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for not releasing a game.
It could still mean January 2025, you know.
Oh, I assume it's gonna be. I assume they're just gonna do the same thing, which is. Can be a bit later, guys, but whatever. One thing I did see is that a lot of people were saying oh, does that mean maybe it's and also the reason that we're definitely going to talk about later, the fact that no gameplay.
Yes.
People were like, oh, does that mean because they can't show it yet because it's coming out next year on the Switch 2? But it's no.
That's what I'm thinking too.
No, it's not going to happen. Dude.
You sure?
Dude, well, I mean, Black and White 2 came out after the release of the 3DS. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out after the release of the Switch. They're not above releasing a Switch game right when there's a new console. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, the Switch 2...
Plus, it's going to be backwards compatible, so...
Will be backwards compatible, exactly.
Yeah, so it's just going to be a Switch game.
Yeah.
I don't think
potentially.
Yeah, I just don't think that it's delayed because it's Switch 2. I think that's people getting their hopes up that it'll actually run properly this time. I don't know about that one.
I wouldn't get my hopes up for that. Like, even though like Switch 2 might be closer to developer to the Switch than the DS is to the Game Boy Advance. But notoriously, Game Freak sucks at developing for the new system.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't get my hopes up for the fact that, it might be for the next system because Game Freak isn't good at that. Side note, the Switch 2 might be easier to develop for them because it's going to be closer to the Switch than like any other big upgrade console-wise.
I mean, people have been saying that it's close to like PlayStation 4 specs, which is a big jump from the Switch.
Well, no idea how that's going to work.
But it doesn't. But if it's a Switch 2 game and it's a Game Freak we're talking about, don't try and make it look like a PlayStation 4 game. Just make the Switch game, except that it actually runs smoothly. That's the only thing that we ask for.
The fact that they decided to skip the big November release could potentially mean, Lenny doesn't seem to think so, that they're waiting for the Switch 2. That maybe Nintendo was like, hey, what if the Switch 2, or the sequel to the Switch, the NX2, launches with a Pokemon game to boost the sales?
Listen, that would be a crazy good idea to have that. Like, having that as a launch title would be sick. That'd be really cool and very smart on their part. I just don't think it's going to happen, because I would be absolutely shocked if this doesn't release in January. Like,
me
Legends
too.
Arceus did.
Legends Arceus did, exactly.
Yeah.
The only thing that's different is that they're skipping the remake.
Yeah, and the Switch 2 isn't going to launch in January. No, that's going to be for March probably, like the Switch.
Although they didn't say, it's interesting that they didn't specify a date, which is something they usually do. Launches worldwide November 18th or whatever, you know? They just said 2025, which means...
Don't they usually have, like, the first trailer is, like, launches like holiday this year or 2025, and then the second trailer has a solid date. Isn't that usually the way it goes? I'm trying to remember what it was for Arceus, but I think I don't remember.
Either way, it still means if we're gonna go by the January release, which is just a guess, but that's what we're gonna assume. That's less than a year away, right?
Yep.
And the fact that in the trailer they didn't show any gameplay either means they, want to keep that little secret and just let kind of people speculate for now, or it could also mean they literally have no decent enough looking gameplay to show by Game Freak standards even.
Yeah, because like Legends Arceus had gameplay
in the first trailer. I think it did.
Yeah,
like
it looked kind of
3
poopy.
FPS Pokemon bouncing around.
Yeah, it looked a little poopy at times. And this is the thing, like, it looked a bit poopy at times, but when they showed off the game later, there were actually improvements. So maybe so you could say that they're waiting to iron those out first, so that when they show off, it's like that's actually what it's going to be like. But I don't know about that one. I mean, it doesn't fill me with hope, the fact that they're not showing any gameplay, because I have a lot of questions about this game, and I'm kind of scared.
I have it jotted down when we're actually going to be talking about expectations and thoughts and hopes and worries. But the first thing I want to talk about, we discussed it a little bit on the Discord, and I have my idea of how it's going to work, because I was very confused at first. Like, is this going to be one game or 2 games?
Oh, what? Why were you confused?
Because, hold up, I'm going to pull this up so I can actually read it. Listen to this. Pokemon Asia English YouTube channel. Video title is Pokemon Legends ZA releases simultaneously worldwide in 2025.
Yes.
And at first I thought that meant, does that mean it's Pokemon Z and Pokemon A releasing simultaneously? But now I realized it's like, oh no, they just mean all over the world.
Worldwide, yeah, of course. They do this every year. Or like every time.
They totally could have gotten away with this, making even Legends a double game release now.
Well, yeah, that's true, but they wouldn't have said it they wouldn't have titled it that way, because you know how asinine Nintendo is with the blah 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 game on Nintendo Switch family of systems, blah blah blah. Like it would have been Pokemon Z, Pokemon Legends Z, and Pokemon Legends A. It would have had the full title. They wouldn't go just
That's true.
Pokemon Legends Z and A. They never do that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there was some confusion about that, so I did want to mention that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then
Like,
I realized I was wrong.
Yeah, like I saw more people be confused about that, but I don't know. I never saw that because I'm smart.
Yes, sure. Very much. Then this is probably something you were implying earlier. Nintendo of America tweeted Pokemon Legends ZA, a new adventure set entirely within Lumiose City.
Yes, that
What?
it's both. This could be so cool, and
Yes,
this could be terrible.
yes. Lumiose is big, so fair. But still, like, I think if people were to think up or imagine this, like, a Legends game in Kalos, they would be like, oh, it would be so cool to, like, learn about the war and blah, blah, blah. Right? But they're clearly not doing that. Another thing, set entirely in Lumiose City. In the trailer, you see all this stuff about, development plans for this city. And it's very modern.
Yeah,
And you see like, the development plans, and then you have the tower, Lumiose Tower. I don't remember what it's called. Did it have a name, or was it just Lumiose Tower?
Prism Tower.
Prism Tower, there you go. It's very modern and very technological. So then it's like, but how is this a Legends game? If it's this modern, it doesn't really feel like a Legends game, quote unquote, if it's set in relatively modern Pokemon times.
Well,
Yes?
see, that's the question. Because afterwards, I read a lot of takes from many different people talking about the game and stuff. And there is interesting stuff where the fact it's... So basically, it's like, the urban redevelopment plan for Lumiose City. And the whole thing is that people are saying like, oh, dude, that's totally based on the Haussmann's renovations of Paris, which happened in the 19th century. And the architecture, like on the sketches and stuff, is the 19th century architecture that is very popular in Paris that happened during that because of those renovations. And that implies like, oh no, it could be in the past because like it looks very future-y, like the trailer, but it might have just been a strange like interpretation of blueprints.
Okay, but what about the Prism Tower?
I mean, the Eiffel Tower is also from the 19th century.
I know, but Prism Tower is basically a modern
It looks a lot more
imagination.
future-y.
Yeah.
It looks a lot more future-y, that's true. So, I mean, that is definitely one of the more confusing parts. That's like, show gameplay so we actually know what it's like, because it does look very modern. Which...
And it doesn't really suit the legend. You read about this in Legends. It's like, no, this happened 100 years ago. That's barely
Yeah, I get that. I mean,
a legend.
the plot could still be about stuff that happened in the past, like the war, like AZ.
Well, listen, that's what I think with... The title is Pokemon
ZA.
Z... Well, Z...
Dash A.
Dash A, right? What if there's actual time travel?
A lot of people are saying that, but I don't know about that. But it does make a lot of sense if you look at it, because ZA, going from the end back to the beginning,
Yeah.
like they're definitely implying something with that title.
That's what I'm thinking.
But it's like active time travel, because I mean, technically,
I don't necessarily
Arceus,
mean active time travel, but for example, you develop or like you see something in the past or future. I'm not sure how this could work, which is why we really need to see gameplay to honestly get a bit of an idea on what they have been cooking up. But
Yeah.
I feel like you could, for example, develop something in the past, and then let's say 500 years in the future, you can see how that thing
its effects.
affected the city or the Pokemon world or something like that. Because if it's set entirely in Lumiose City, you do need some kind of hook there.
Gimmick.
That's not just, there's a city, you develop the city, you go catch Pokemon to help develop the city. That's it.
Well, see, that's the thing where I'm like, okay, so, I mean, okay, first off, point number one for me is, okay, so time-wise, is it like Is it still in the past? Is it present day, future? It's still all up in the air. And that's the thing that worries me, because Pokemon Legends Arceus being set in the past was a wonderful way of having the gameplay systems of the game make sense. Because this is a time where there are no trainers, so Pokemon are dangerous creatures, so you need to approach them differently and stuff. And that makes a lot of sense. If you put all of that in present day or more modern day, then I wonder if it's going to be more difficult to make that gameplay style fit in
and make it believable
in this setting. Which brings me to point number 2. The fact that they haven't shown it in gameplay also scares me, because what if this isn't like Pokemon Legends Arceus?
That's what I'm thinking.
What if the gameplay is something
the gameplay is going to be
different?
vastly different?
And I'm scared of that, because I want Pokemon Legends Arceus gameplay, because that's just really cool. And if it's something different, because it's also like all those gameplay systems in Pokemon Legends Arceus, I can't see how some of those would fit in a urban setting. The sneaking in tall grass to sneak up on Pokemon and stuff, like how would that work in a busy city full of people? So
maybe you were a rogue samurai and you use Night Slash on passerbys at night.
Yeah, that makes sense. What does that have to do with
For
catching
those who
Pokemon?
don't know, Night Slash in the Japanese version is called Crossroad Killing. And it's based on like samurai who have gone rogue.
Yeah, true.
Who
Cool,
just
I didn't
kill
know that,
peasants
actually.
to test out their sword.
Yeah. I didn't know that was the inspiration for it. That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of slashing moves are based on like sword techniques that couldn't be translated.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was I gonna say?
Yeah, there's one other point of worry for me, and I mean, but the other worry is the technical stuff, because saying the entire game is set within Lumiose City, that means you have to really build up and flesh out this city. Have many different streets and alleyways and little squares and buildings and stuff that you can like actually explore the city, different levels, like you have a bridge, but then there's like the waterways, like you'll have to fill it with NPCs and characters so that it actually feels like a city and it's not empty and stuff. Like there's so much potential there, but again we get to the point that it's Game Freak and I don't trust them to do something like this.
Yeah, Legends Arceus already did it pretty well, but for a city as big as Lumiose, you really gotta fine-tune the details to make it a living world, town, city.
Yeah, like this has to be, it's Lumiose City, that has to be a bustling metropolis.
Well, not at first.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of questions like, yeah, if it's like, are we gonna start with small town and build it up into a city? Or are we just gonna be in a city, but we're gonna renovate the city and make it prettier or something? Like it's, I don't know, yeah, a lot of questions that's like, it's hard to imagine how it works. Like I can't imagine, like if I just have to think about Pokemon Legends Arceus, but you're in a big city, I just don't see how that works.
So either that Nintendo of America tweet is just extremely misleading.
Yeah, because there were some questions about like, people translating the way they worded in other languages where they weren't that specific, where it's like only in Lumiose City. There, the language was more like starts in Lumiose City or something along those lines. They just weren't that specific.
Yeah.
So the question is like, yeah, I don't know. Did they?
Which again is why we need gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like one other thing I do want to say is that right now, when you hear, oh, Pokemon Legends, you think Pokemon Legends Arceus, right? But technically, a Legends game does not have a set, like a status quo for now, because there's only one Legends game.
Yeah,
so
that's
what
why
if the
I'm worried
Legends
that
series
it's gonna be
is just
different.
Game Freak trying different things?
Yeah, because like, yeah, that's also what I was
wouldn't
thinking. Like
hate
maybe
that, honestly.
Yeah, like maybe the Pokemon Legends series is just going to be Game Freak trying new things, which would be sad because like
Why would that be sad?
I mean, no, it's fine, of course, but again, it's like I like Legends Arceus. I want more of that, but I don't think this game is going to be more of that because a big city is never going to have the amount and variety of wild Pokemon that Arceus is going to have where you're in the wild. There's going to be a lot more trainers, so there's probably going to be a bigger focus on battling, which you see in the trailer as well.
Do you?
I mean, concepts that there were like the Aegislash fighting the Sylveon, I think. Like, I don't know, thinking about the urban setting, I just think there's never going to be as many wild Pokemon. There's going to be more people. It's more modern setting, so there's going to be trainers. You see trainers fighting in the trailer, while the whole thing of Arceus was the concept of a Pokemon trainer doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff makes me think that I just can't see this being anything like Pokemon Legends Arceus, which worries me because that's what I want. But I mean, if you give me something new that I also like, it's cool, but I don't know.
I like the idea of them trying different things, honestly, because for lack of a better term, Pokemon has, or like the standard Pokemon status quo has really become quite stale and repetitive. You're the kid in the new region, you catch a Pokemon to do the gyms, to battle the league.
Like they need to add in more new stuff to keep it interesting, which, for better or worse, Scarlet and Violet, the fact that it was open world, did give it a big boost for me that was like, oh, okay, this is something different. I like this.
Too bad they kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course.
Well, look, listen, let's say they're actually slowing down. And then along the way, like they've realized they can't do big games, like huge games, right? Like Scarlet and Violet, because that's like 10% of a real open world game. So they're going to scale down their scope, and they're going to try smaller things, like, for example, maybe this Pokemon Legends game actually does. It's like entirely within Lumiose City.
Yeah, it's not super world,
and
just
it's a smaller
one
game.
city.
Like, let's say, for example, how Pokemon Snap was back in the day.
Yeah, it's like just one city, so they can focus on quality over quantity.
Exactly. Which, at the end of the day, is going to make the game better. It's not going to be as long. It's not going to be as big of an adventure, but it's going to be better, I think, if that's what they're going for. Because at this point, we know literally nothing. And honestly, whatever happens, it's fine. Let's just keep things civil. And how about you guys leave your thoughts, hopes, and worries in the comments too? Because honestly, I'm curious what people's thoughts and hopes and worries are, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it can go anywhere at this point.
When they announced Pokemon Legends Arceus, you had a clear vision of like, oh yeah, okay, this is what the game is. But for this, it's such a mystery. Like, my mind is buzzing with like, what could it be?
Sim Poke City.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, yeah, what if this is just a completely different thing? And yeah, it's literally just a city builder. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's still fun to, think about it and speculate.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, when did they show the second trailer for Pokemon Legends Arceus? Was that like in the summer, in June?
I'm gonna guess. Does Pokemon always do its own directs, or does it sometimes happen during a Nintendo Direct?
I think that was its own thing.
Okay.
But I'm like, I think it was maybe June, but it's like, that's such a long wait with literally zero information.
I mean, I'm still glad we don't have an outright set in stone date, because that fucks them over more than it should. So they could say, 2025, which can mean anything. It could be November 2025.
I mean,
probably won't be, but it could, because they haven't said anything.
Yeah, I hope. I hope that's the case.
Me too. Or if it's a smaller game, sure, do January and use more of your development time for whatever new game you're cooking up in the mainline thing, whatever. Just do smaller things and then do a big thing every once in a while. Slow down is what I'm saying. Maybe they finally are. Who knows? We'll have to see where we end up. And I'm curious to see the future of Pokemon. Quick summary. Let's just say our dream, or like my dream scenario, would probably be a more refined Arceus type game, but I don't think it will be that. And I think you're pretty much a one-to-one with that thought process.
Yeah, the ideal for me is that a Legends Arceus style game, but set in one city, which means that they can properly flesh out the city, and it feels like a city worth exploring, like little alleyways, nooks and crannies, taking a staircase down to walk near the water, under the bridge, like make me want to explore the city.
How are the Pokemon gonna play into that?
That is the big question, and that's the part that really, like, I just can't say.
Yeah. So there's a lot of question marks floating around, and it'll be interesting to see those being filled in over time. Yeah, I think that's about it. Do you think the title will actually be Pokemon Z to A?
Z to A.
Yeah.
I think it's just no, because they don't write it out as Z-A. They just say ZA. So it's just ZA or Pokemon Za, and then when you play it, you have to eat a slice of pizza. Or you go Pokemon Zawarudo.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you everybody for watching this video and listening to us rambling. Please leave your thoughts and hopes and worries in the comments below, but do keep it civil, please. I like healthy discussions, not people yelling at me or other people. I don't like when people yell at me for having an opinion. It hurts my ears. Yes, whenever I read comments, I actually hear your voice. Try it. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.